Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weed from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after the 11th straight victory by the Winnipeg Jets. This is just getting absurd by this stage. And in a good way. If you're a Jets fan, you have to be loving what you're seeing right now, especially on a night like tonight where I thought personally, we can get into all the kind of stuff. There were some three pretty big three pistols, if you heard the opening. They didn't have in the lineup the Ottawa Senators. But, I mean, I'll say this. Ken and I were just talking about this right before we came on. If the Winnipeg Jets had three high-caliber players missing from the lineup, I still think their game, their depth, their goaltending would give them a real good shot at winning that game. And I think tonight's a bit of an example in that the Winnipeg Jets as a team weren't big fans of their game tonight. They thought it was the worst game they'd played in this 11-game stretch. I wouldn't argue with that. I definitely thought the Ottawa Senators started better. But when it comes down to it, the Winnipeg Jets, even when they're bad, if that was bad tonight, they're a pretty darn good team. I mean, yeah, there's some opportunities there, but it's not like wide open, pass it to the back end of the net kind of thing. It's not, no egregious giveaways like the one that Tim Stützle had at the beginning of the game, and then leaving, allowing the player to get in behind you and be all alone in front of the net like that. The Winnipeg Jets, I can't remember the last time I've seen them sink to the level of being that bad. And I think it says something about the Winnipeg Jets that even when they're not close to their game, even when they're not close to their game in their mind, they're really not that far off of their game. I mean, I still think they competed well throughout the game in their zone. Did they look a little discombobulated at times? Sure, they did. But man, compete after compete. Like, I would say this, if you're a coach who's breaking down the game of the Ottawa Senators, and if you're a coach who's breaking down the game of the Winnipeg Jets, there's just so many things that are happening, the little details that the Jets do. Like, there's a number of times Dylan DeMello just read the opposition who are just trying to get that cheap, easy play, right? I call it cheap and easy. It's actually, I shouldn't say cheap because it's not a bad thing, but you just rim the puck all the way around. And because the defenders are over committing to one side, it just leaves the puck in a space where your other defenseman should get it wide open. And I saw a number of times Dylan DeMello just jumping that route and stopping the puck, and boom, that's a turnover. That's a great play. You see that battle play by Neil Pionk when they were at the tail end of a kind of a rough shift, and the guy was just trying to lean on him, and he just kind of punched him. I mean, if I'm a coach, he just punches his shoulder and kind of almost knocks him down and knocks him off the puck. Like, if I'm a coach, I'm holding up that play as, hey, yeah, these guys were stuffed in their own zone, and yeah, some things weren't going well, but God, do I love to compete in that scenario. God, do I love the, thinking I'm going to snuff this out right here at this very moment. There was one shift I saw Josh Morrissey just battling along the boards, and this, I think, was before you got to the third period, where the Jets coaches and their players liked, or started to like their game. Logan Stanley jumping in, thinking that, their top player, one of their top players, got need. Adam Lowry kind of stepping in and just saying, okay, 2 hits like this, things are getting too hot. I'm going to settle this down. The Jets' response to that, if this is a bad game, the Jets' bad game is beyond a lot of teams' good games. Jets are on another level right now. To me, I looked at that, and it looked like the kind of game where, a group of 16-year-olds goes in and kind of half-assedly plays a group of 13-year-olds and comes away with the win. That's what that's what I saw there. A team like the Ottawa Senators, who, when they've got everyone together, are a good squad. They're having a little bit of trouble right now. Injuries definitely having something to do with that. Even add everybody in there, they're not at the level, and I don't think they're close to the level of the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets right now are kind of lapping the league in a way, and just 11 straight games. Who knows how far they're going to take this schedule coming up, as long as they don't get too tired tomorrow. I don't know. I'm not going to jinx it. I'm not even going to go in that direction. Just, I take a look at this, and I think that the Winnipeg Jets, when they let their guard down, are still as attentive as maybe 85% of the league in that situation. And if you're going to be that way, you're going to be a really, really hard team to beat. That's my take on this whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take. Here comes Kenny, folks. Oh, Kenny, I'm loving this from Stu Smith, who realizes the national media when he's at work says the Renny influence first, Helly for heart. Now Jets are Canada's team. I love it. I love it seeing my work recognized and starting to spread across there. Hey, I'll say this, and you know this, Ken, because you get these calls too, but we talk quite a bit to a lot of the other national media around the league, and we've kind of filled them in. We inform them on what we see from the day-to-day with the Winnipeg Jets, and I know that our word carries some weight, as does the Kenny and Renny show with those folks. So good on us for kind of spreading the word, and a lot of the the rest of the national media out there seeing what we've been seeing for a long time. What I'm seeing right now is a golf shirt I'm loving here. I don't know if
Pink shirt day, buddy. Pink shirt day. Anti-bullying.
I'm going to tell you this. I know that it's warm there in Winnipeg. If there's anyone I know who would have tried to slip out on the golf course today because it was a couple days above freezing, it's this guy right here. But you're looking good with the anti-bullying pink shirt going on there. I didn't get the memo on that. I do have the emerald green, to going back to my Irish roots. Emerald green. My daughter helped me pick out the tie and sent me a note after my opening saying, hey, you're lucky I picked the right tie because you look good there. And of course I did, because when you head down to Vittorio Rossi, they're always going to make you look good. So you know what to do. If you want your daughter giving you compliments, your teenage daughter who usually, giving you compliments, texting you compliments, you know what to do. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corridon Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do it upright. Ken, what'd you see in that one?
Yeah, interesting game on a lot of fronts. And honestly, the game itself, I'm with you. I mean, it wasn't, I don't know that the Jets were, they weren't bad. But I personally love the self-assessment. This is something that we've talked about a lot, and, it used to be a classic, don't critique a win around these parts at times. And I mean, that goes back to the Manitoba Moose days. That's a Randy Carlyleism that was, passed down and around a little bit. And
yeah,
a lot of people in the NHL feel that way too, Sean. But
just before I like this new version. Just before we go there, I hate that mindset. I hate it. I've always hated it. So just let's get that out there. But go on ahead.
No, and so when Mason Appleton, and you're in the group there, Sean, I'm listening at home, in my office, but I mean, you're in there, and I love that Mason Appleton said it was the ugliest one of the bunch, and Scott Arniel not walking away from it either. I mean, he preferred to use the word sloppy, so that's fine too, right? So. And even Cole Perfetti didn't like the way that the Jets played at times. But I agree with you. I think that even the fact that this qualifies as ugly and sloppy is a testament to the game that they play, and the structure that they play with. So for me, that in itself, I think, is an important part of the process. And that's why, like Sean, when people ask us what's different, right? I mean, the Jets have gone down this road before, right? they've gone down this road. They've been, they've been around the President's Trophy. They've been around the top of the division. They've been around the top of the Western Conference, and then things have kind of fizzled at times. So that's not what we're seeing now. Like you said, this is a game the Jets could have easily lost, 2-3 years ago, whatever time frame you want to look at it, maybe even last year. But the growth in their game is that I also think too, and I love the way that you asked Scott or Neil about when you have two periods that you don't like, why is it important to get back to standard and structure in the third and kind of take control in a game like that? Where do I want to say the Jets were lucky to be up 3-1? No. But I also think that game could have easily, it's so funny, Sean. The game could have been 5-1 Jets if their power play had clicked, but it also could have been 3-all, right? So
Yeah.
that to me was super interesting about the game itself. So there's a lot of things for the Jets to still like in this game. They still managed to get a lot of check marks, goals from 3 of the 4 lines, right? So that's a check mark. I mean, what we heard today in a lot of the, whether it's the, highlight shows or on the broadcast, a lot of talk about the depth, Sean. Depth is not a new development for the Jets. They had 8 10-goal scorers last year, might have even been 9. So they've had depth for a while, but now the depth is sort of, it seems like it's stretched even further. And Sean, one of the biggest developments for the Jets, and we'll dig into it a little bit when I step back from the buffet here, but the fact that they're not, and they haven't been a one-line hockey team for a long time, but we've talked so often this year about it took, in that 3-7 stretch, the Jets didn't have their first and second line going at the same time. Well, guess what? During the bulk of this 11-game winning streak, both the Mark Scheifele and Vladislav Nemestikov lines have been rolling, and they've had secondary scoring and complementary scoring throughout the lineup as well. So, and again, I agree with you in the fact that I didn't think that their defensive effort was that leaky, but they did give up a few too many chances. I mean, I looked at the natural stat trick had it as an 8-8 game and high chances at 5-on-5. So probably a little more than the Jets would have liked, but at the same time, it wasn't. I mean, we've seen plenty of double-digit goal games when the Jets have gone bad or didn't have their legs, or they give up, 12 or 13, and that's a lot more than 8. So, they were definitely opportunistic, but I do think that there was really an important shift to the structure in the third where they kind of took control when the other team is generally making a big push. And, also too, I mean, some people didn't like it, but the fact that Jets stood up for one another, and I thought that you touched on it very well. I mean, Adam Lowry totally calmed the game down, like 2 massive hits, by the Ottawa Senators in the early part of the game, one by Artem Zub on Mark Scheifele. And then the next one was Tyler Clevin a little bit late on Mason Appleton. So again, I don't know that the Clevin hit was, dirty. It was maybe a little bit late. And the Zub hit is interesting, Sean. I don't know what you thought, but he did not stick his leg out, but in some ways it still was kind of tripping, maybe interference. I know that Gary Galley didn't agree, and there was some question as to whether Scheifele touched the puck or not. Either way, it seemed like when he reached for it, it kind of made him fair game, but it still might have been clipping or tripping, and that's what Gal's kind of said also. But again, in real time, you don't get a chance to see the replay like we do. We see 5 replays, right? In real time, Mark Scheifele doesn't see it. And the other issue too, Mark's had trouble with his knee before. So when you're his teammate, you're absolutely going to go after the opponent, even though that was more hugging than anything else. And, I give Tyler Clevin a lot of credit for dropping with Adam Lowry. Tyler Clevin went to UND. He had been in one career fight. I don't think that he saw Monday's game, and Adam was pretty mad and was looking for a combatant already on Monday, Sean. He found kind of an unsuspecting participant in Clevin, and actually did a little bit of damage to his hand. It looked like there was quite a bit of blood.
Big boy.
He definitely is, but just not a lot of experience dropping the mitts. So
Nope.
I was impressed by his willingness, but also too, it sounded like they said lower body on the broadcast. So maybe it's not related to the fight itself. But
What
anyway.
I would suggest is when you tackle or when you go up against a guy as big as Clevin is, when you go against a guy like Adam Lowry, who's that big and that strong,
Mm-hmm.
you've got him kind of pushing and pulling on you. That's when you can tweak a hip or tweak a knee or, roll
Groin,
an ankle
whatever,
or
yeah.
something like that. It's like, hey, listen, if anyone's ever done a plank before and felt what it's like to clench up all your muscles and hold your body like that, well, now try clenching up all the muscles in your body and trying to withstand someone like Adam Lowry, who's so big and so strong, from moving you in different ways. That's how you end up tweaking joints. That's what I would think happened in that situation. Anyways, sorry to cut you off, Ken.
No, I think that's all. That's good place to step back. I mean, unless you want to share, did you think what in the building, what did you think on the Zub play just in real time? And I think also Mark almost kind of tried to jump out of the way in some ways, right? Or no?
I mean, if the penalty on Mason Appleton at the end of the game is a penalty, then I think that's a penalty, right? Like it's a guy kind of now. Again, I would have looked at Mason Appleton's penalty and thought maybe it's not. It's one of those that can go either way. But the difference between the two is Mason Appleton is kind of going outside of himself to get at a guy, and he gets a penalty for that. In the Mark Scheifele situation, it's looking like a knee, and it's looking like a problem. And the thing I would say to anyone out there who's watched this, when it comes to these kind of penalties, I think I've been rock solid consistent for the 4 years we've been doing this show. By the way, Ken, this is the 4th anniversary of the first ever Kenny and Renny show. It popped up in a Facebook message. But the one thing I'm always consistent on is when things get dangerous, I think rules should exist. You err on the side of caution when it comes to things getting dangerous. So if I see a guy getting a knee in a situation like that, I'd rather get it wrong. I would rather be like, okay, I'm going to penalize that play and find out later on when I go in the intermission that I got it wrong. I looked at it and I thought in real time, it sure looked to me like it was a knee. Good on Logan Stanley for jumping up in that situation, which brings me to what I think is someone from Calgary. Big Hitter, is it here? Yes. Big Hitter says, fans still have problems with Stanley, Pionk, and Appleton. I'm in Calgary. You don't know how good you have it. I think Big Hitter is giving the entire Kenny and Reddy audience a big old Pristine Roofing wake-up call. And you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing as well at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. It will look amazing, and you will be so glad that you did.
Loved Appleton's game, Sean. I'm going to start there.
Okay.
8 shot attempts, four shots on goal. He has the goal. Yes, I understand people want to say, oh, the puck was just laying there. But he had to get there first. He had to get there before the defenseman got there. A couple one-timers today. I thought he did a really good job of I thought he was very effective. I thought he was using his speed a little bit more. I thought there was a lot more cohesion with that line today, Sean, with Niederreiter and Lowry. Obviously, we know it's, just the 3rd game back for Adam Lowry. And yes, everyone's coming back from the break. But I thought Appleton was really effective today in the game. Obviously, Lowry had an impact too. And I thought that Niederreiter was a lot more dangerous around the net. And man, even though it was kind of an easy-ish goal for Appleton just to poke it in, I thought Ullmark made a great save. That was a really tough backhand when Niederreiter was in all alone on that play. But Ullmark was kind of he was doing a little bit of swimming, Sean, in that game. There was another one later in the 3rd period, I think, where he made a really good save on Kyle Connor, but the puck was kind of just laying there and he had no idea where it was.
Yeah.
So...
And again, control was suspect tonight.
And I saw the quotes from Alex Adams and others, saying that, my game was all right and all right's not good enough. So again, we're talking about self-assessment. Good on the Senators for that as well. After 5 straight losses, they know it's not good enough. So anyways, just a quick thought on Appleton there before we move along. And again, the 4-year anniversary, that's awesome stuff, Sean. And it's just been a really fun ride. And I was just looking at the stats as you were making your way back to the hotel. Like, we're coming up on 600,000 downloads, which is pretty pretty cool stuff when you're looking about the 4 years here and the shows we've been doing. So pretty
Well,
neat.
no doubt
And that's a big thanks to our audience here.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't happen without all of you out there. We definitely appreciate that. And I think a pretty impressive number, Ken, given that we only have, for the most part, post game shows, right? You're only talking about, so if it's 4 years, you're talking about 82 times 4 with a handful of other shows outside of that. So
Fifth season,
it's appreciated out there, folks. We love doing this. It's funny. Someone just said to me, "Oh, I was talking with Kyle Bukoskis, and I was talking with him about the added." Kyle's a busy guy, right? And he was trying to offer, because Kyle is, as you know, one of the nicest guys in the business, and he was offering me a ride home, and I was like, dude, you rarely get a break. Like, go home and get like the half hour Sportsnet is willing to give you off, because adding to already his busy schedule, all the 32 Thoughts stuff,
and they're expecting big news for the Bukoskises.
Oh yeah. I didn't even know that, Ken. Breaking news. Look at you.
No, it's been on 32 Thoughts. Come on.
Oh, okay. Well, then, listen, maybe I'm too busy. Maybe that's what's going on with me. I'm too busy. But anyways, Kyle, great guy, always very busy. But he'd said about, while you guys sure are busy with the show there, and this was the point I was trying to get to, there's no place I'd rather be than right here chatting hockey with you, Ken, and chatting hockey with our group here. It's good stuff. I wanted to ask a question, Ken, and I asked, it's funny because I think stumped, and I said to him afterwards, I hope I didn't put you in a bad spot asking that question, but I asked Scott Arniel, because we all know fighting's a touchy subject. I see that team the game kind of, there's a lot of build up for the Ottawa Senators. They go out. If you don't have your star players, maybe it's a game you want to drag into the alley, right? Starts out, Logan Stanley goes in, and then another big hit, which I thought was a great hit. The hit by Clevin on Mason Appleton, I thought is a great hit. So I was a little bit surprised by Adam Lowry jumping in, but then it becomes pretty clear and evident. Adam Lowry doesn't like the way they're taking the temperature up in that game. And Adam Lowry does what I absolutely love when players do when they play hockey, is he says, not on my watch. You and me are going, and what are you going to do about it? Like, Adam Lowry basically, he's that guest who comes into your house, Ken, and he thinks it's too hot in the house, and he walks over and makes eye contact with you as he turns your thermostat down. That's who he is. He turns the thermostat down in that game, says, what are you going to do about it? And I do think, to a degree, the game changes in that moment. The Jets get 2 goals shortly after that, but I definitely do not think that the Ottawa Senators were anywhere near as brave after that moment as they were before.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, the only thing about the hit on Appleton, it was like a hair late, maybe. I think the puck had kind of already passed, but again, like, in terms of, it was not a headshot, it was not a charging or anything else. But I agree with you. This was one of those situations where Adam Lowry just said, "Hey, just take it easy a little bit here." It was like the training camp, Sean, where Brendan Dillon took that run at Kyle Connor, and Kyle kind of looked over his shoulder, and then all of a sudden Blake Wheeler went over to Brendan and said, "Hey, man, we're on the same team here.
Yeah.
You appreciate the intensity, but," and again, we know it's a different scenario between, training camp and a real game against a team that's lost 4 in a row and chasing its playoff spot here. But I agree with you. I thought that was his, like, calming things down kind of scenario. And you're right. I mean, there weren't a lot of big, heavy collisions after that. And again, obviously, if Brady Tkachuk is playing, there's probably a few more collisions. But I did think that Lowry did a great job. And, he was, like I said, he was kind of spitting fire already on Monday in that game against the Sharks and had found no takers. So not really surprised. But I mean, we saw Adam's hand was kind of, I wouldn't say bandaged up, it was kind of taped up, but no worse for wear. And, that's the kind of, like Mason Appleton said, like, that's the kind of guy that Adam Lowry is. That's leadership. That's a captain. And then after that, I thought he really had a little bit of extra jump in his step. And again, not that he needs to be fighting every 3 games or anything like that, but when Adam's involved physically, man, he can really be a handful and a force to be reckoned with for the opposition. So I thought that really important moment in the game. And I know I'm with you. Like, so Scott there was definitely a pregnant pause to his answer when you asked him about that, Sean. But
Yeah.
Again, Scott is an old school guy. He doesn't mind when things get a little bit feisty. And I mean, that was another great example.
Bick Rona says 4
Oh,
years too
wow.
long. There's
Hey,
just all the
Bick knows where the
negativity
door
for
is.
Bick.
Hey, Bick knows where the door is if it's too long for us.
I think Bick is just as devoted to his heel wrestling character as
Indeed.
anyone I've ever seen before.
Please stay, Bick.
Good for
Please
you,
stay.
Bick. Don't let
ever
us change
change.
you here. And I also want to say here, Jeff Kabilis is having a banger of a show right now, cracking me up. He says 4 years putting up with each other. Can't wait for the diaries to be published. That's the second laugh out loud moment for me. I'm going to say, Ken, it has paid off that I didn't ban Jeff Kabilis from the show years ago, like you had always suggested I do. So Jeff,
Jeff, he's lying.
Congratulations for making it this far. It was close. I went to bat for you, and it's worked out. And I think it's worked out for us because it's paid off for us, no doubt, to have people like Jeff out there who make us crack up. And hey, if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. And I just wanted to say, got a message the other day from one of our fans who reached out, was going and taking their mortgage and getting a mortgage at Cambrian Credit Union. Let us know, asked us who to put you in touch with. If you ever need help getting in touch with our sponsors, we would love to help you out. So feel free to reach out to Ken, reach out to myself in situations like that. It means the world to us for us to be able to pass you off to our sponsors, because you know how I feel about you appreciating our sponsors who always fight to keep the conversation going in this space. Speaking of sponsors,
great tweet from Jeff also while we were both on vacation of the Mega Powers union there. I don't know if you caught it when you were there or not.
Jeff's always got the
on fire.
There is very few people. Okay, since we're getting into like fourth anniversary talk, a lot of the early conversations behind the show would be where I was basically saying to Ken about crafting like wrestling style characters. Even the music that we had, like that we started to come with, was basically like, oh boy, you hit someone's right, like the glass breaks and here comes Stone Cold. I knew right away. Very few people understood the wrestling undertones of the show better than Jeff Kabilis, but we also know that Jeff Kabilis is a massive wrestling fan, so he definitely picked up on that right from the beginning. Anyways, Jeff Kabilis says, what is this? Jeff Kabilis lunch. Stop it. We got a show to do here. You got to stop taking us out of this here. I thought it was a little interesting when Scott Arniel kind of what you saw in that moment, and it's just we've gone that much further down that road, Ken, where I think it's clear and evident within the Winnipeg Jets, and I think in the Winnipeg Jets audience, the value that a guy like Adam Lowry brings. And maybe Adam Lowry is the perfect guy. I hate to say this, and I don't want to put this on his shoulders because I'm sure he wouldn't want it. But I'm going to say it in what I think. I think Adam Lowry kind of perfectly represents the modern day NHL fighter, or fighting where it is in the game. I am not one of these people who wants to see fighting tossed out of the game. And this is one of the reasons why, because when it's enacted properly, it's not just big goons out there fighting other big goons. It's someone like Adam Lowry who's got miles of respect for the game. And I don't know if you've ever seen an example. I've never seen an example of Adam Lowry going out and starting a hockey fight or picking a hockey fight or indulging in a hockey fight that seemed in any way disrespectful or not honoring the game. I think that he toes that line perfect. And typically, if Adam Lowry is fighting, there's a very good reason for it. And quite often that reason is keeping his teammates safe in a lot of these situations. So I think he perfectly exemplifies hockey fights and where they are in this day and age, why I don't think that they should be gone. I do not pile hate on Adam Lowry. If you feel so negatively towards fighting, pile it on me, because I've put my stance out there. But all that said, Scott Arniel, you could see he was like, it was almost like his brain was going, is it okay to talk about fighting? Is it okay for me to say that actually really helped our team here? The way that the world works right now, I think hockey players and coaches for the most part have been instructed to kind of leave that topic alone whenever it comes up and when it's addressed. But I don't know. There's way too many situations like this tonight where a game really did turn and the Jets' fortunes turned on Adam Lowry doing what he did. And I don't know how they don't, when you see, probably out of love, the captain of your team heading out and putting himself in danger's way in an effort to make sure that he's reducing the danger coming towards you. That's what I thought he did tonight. And I thought it was just another great example of Adam Lowry being a great captain.
Yeah, great leadership. And yeah, I mean, this guy plays incredibly hard, respects the game to the nth degree, and has the respect of people around the league. And again, great choice for captain, all of those things. And the inclusivity that we've talked about, and how everybody feels a part of what's going on with the Winnipeg Jets. Yes, Adam has got help in the leadership category for sure, but he's done just a fantastic job ever since he's been named captain.
Okay, this is a great question, and I'm going to indulge in here. Stu Smith asks, did Four Nations change the fight narrative? I mean, I can't think of anything in hockey for a number of years that has captured the attention of the United States and the sports world the way that the start of that game did. Do you think that to a degree has nudged the opinion of fighting kind of back a number of years, which some people will say moving backwards is the opposite of progress? I don't mind it.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, and you touched on it on the broadcast. Anytime that the NHL is getting love with the Kelsey brothers and Jimmy Fallon, they've taken notice, and it's impossible not to take notice based on the first 9 seconds of that game between Canada and the US. But I mean, it's not the only reason people were watching. And the gold medal game, the championship game, was a great example. That was an excellent hockey game that went down to the wire, overtime, hard hitting. There were no fights in that game. But yeah, I mean, I just think that again, we're not out here advocating for line brawls and bench clearings and fights every 4 shifts or anything like that, Sean. But like, the fact that there is a deterrent, I think, has always been an important part. Whether it's one fight and done and any of those things, if you feel like somebody's trying to take advantage of your teammate, then someone is going to stand up and make something happen. And often Adam Lowry is that person. And yeah, I mean, when the most skilled players in the Four Nations that were participating had plenty of people willing to throw down, I mean, it was an example of people being willing and able to do so. But as you mentioned, I mean, there's not just guys that are only there on rosters to fight anymore, and that is where the progress has come, right? So again, it has an important place in the game. Again, we're not saying it has to be a ton of fights all of the time, and we know there are obviously long-term issues when it comes to CTE and all of those other things. But I do think that there is a time and a place for it, and that was an example of that as well.
Yeah, and when people should know where my opinions come from in this situation. I'm a person who has had 8 concussions in my life, a number of them through hockey, some things happening outside of hockey. None of them happened in the fights that I was in, and I've been in, I'd say, 30 hockey fights over my years. I'm not saying that is the suggestion is that means hockey is safe. I'm just relating my experience because I went and lived that kind of lifestyle and played that kind of lifestyle. It just colors who I am and the kind of opinions I have. I'm just trying to color in that background. Ken, you don't have to touch on this, but I noticed that it kind of like blew up here a little bit. And Philly Dangerous saying, I know it's a lose-lose. And look at me. Hey, it's a room full of rakes on the ground. I'll go and I'll walk and I'll step into all of them, because my take on this is like, we're going to speak our mind. I've got nothing to fear on this. Philly Dangerous says, I know it's lose-lose, but are you guys going to draw a line in the sand for people treading on Gretzky? No, I'm not going to in this situation. Listen, Wayne Gretzky and his relationship that he has with Donald Trump, that's his relationship. That's what he's chose. That's fine. Wayne Gretzky chose to make that a public relationship. He chose to make a public showing of that relationship, which means he took himself and he put himself into the political sphere. People have the right to feel the way that they want to about the political sphere. Now, if I'm talking about personally, I've been kind of surprised that Wayne Gretzky, who I've always thought of as one of the greatest Canadians to ever live, and someone who always advocated for Canada, and someone who's done so for years and earns credit for doing that for years and earns like a lot of honor and a lot of thanks. I've been surprised, especially with Four Nations happening, that Wayne Gretzky has not found a way to put his voice out there in response to the threats of annexation and tariffs, which I retweeted something earlier on today. If you follow me on Twitter, Canada's, who is an American, Canada's soccer coach, came out and said that he thought that the talk from Donald Trump was disrespectful towards Canada. I believe that is the case. I think that his talk towards Canada is not the way you talk about an ally, not the way you talk about a country you respect. I think it's been dismissive. And so when you align yourself beside someone, but you are also a representative of Canada, I'm not going to say I thought Wayne Gretzky owed it. And Wayne Gretzky doesn't owe anything. But in the vacuum he left behind, not addressing what's happening, what is clearly driving Canadians to boo an anthem, what's clearly a hot topic issue, the fact that Wayne Gretzky was silent on the whole issue, and some people are going to say he doesn't owe anyone anything. And you're right, he doesn't owe anyone anything. But in that silence, he created a vacuum of Canadians sitting there waiting to hear what he had to say about that. And today, Donald Trump filled that vacuum. Today, Donald Trump went out and spoke for Wayne Gretzky. Now, I don't know if what he tweeted about it, and if you haven't seen the tweet, you should go check it out. But I don't know if it's honest or truthful, because it's Donald Trump. You never know what bluster and bravado is truthful or not. The guy lies like he's, popping Tic Tacs. But what Wayne Gretzky's silence on the issue with a country that's probably been waiting to hear from him on this, what that did is it allowed someone to come in and speak for him in a way that I don't think is at all representative of Canada. So Philly Danger, that's a long way of me answering your question. I know it's a lose-lose, but are you guys going to draw a line in the sand for people treading on Gretzky? No, the answer is no. I'm not going to tell people how they should feel about Wayne Gretzky. I'm not going to tell people how they should respond to Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky is a big boy, and I think that stepping into the political realm that he did, Wayne Gretzky is a smart human being. He's in the times that I've been hearing him or around him or been part of interviews with him, he is a smart guy. He wasn't only, in my opinion, and I don't think I have always said Wayne Gretzky is far and away the best hockey player of all time. He's a smart guy. So he's smart enough to know that wading in and making his public support of Donald Trump was going to take him into a certain stratosphere. He knows there's an example. It happened to Bobby Orr. He got dragged into the exact same thing. So I don't think I don't think Wayne Gretzky is one bit surprised that this is happening in this situation. You go and you play in that stratosphere. Politics is a bare knuckle boxing match, and he's willingly stepped into that ring.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add on that front, Sean, but I think you handled it pretty well here. So how about Hellebuyck? The pursuit of 48 or 50 wins, how much does it matter in the big picture here with 23 left. Hellebuyck's probably going to have, let's say, 17 starts, maybe 16, 17 starts. Does it matter, or does he get it? Does he get the record? Does 50 matter?
Oh, I think he gets it. And I think it matters to him. I think anytime you do something that's going to put you in the history books is going to matter. I don't see, to be honest with you, even if he's like, even if that wasn't in play, I still think Connor Hellebuyck would be trying to play every game down to the end of the season. Now, and let's just be honest with ourselves. If you think that Connor Hellebuyck has gassed out in the playoffs in years past, if you are of that theory, and you think that what he needs is, to be sat for a number of games or like take a break before the playoffs or something like that, that's not up to anyone. It's been proven over the years in Winnipeg. That's not up to anyone but Connor Hellebuyck. If Connor Hellebuyck decides that he needs a rest and decides that, hey, those people on K&R in the chat room, they're right. I keep gassing out in the playoffs, and I'm going to need to take some time off to make sure I don't gas out in the playoffs. Connor Hellebuyck will make that decision. What has become clear and evident to me, Ken, is that through the Paul Maurice years, through the Rick Bowness years, and now into the Scott Arniel years, nobody tells Connor Hellebuyck what he's going to do. He has been given a green light by this organization to do whatever he thinks is best for him in his game. They've been allowing him to make those decisions for years. It's led to him becoming a two-time Vezina Goldie winner. It's going to be 3, maybe even a Hart Trophy winner. So the Jets really have not gone wrong in allowing Connor Hellebuyck the autonomy to make those kind of decisions. So it's one of the reasons why, I'll be honest, 100% honest, one of the topics I find least interesting when we talk about it on this show is Connor Hellebuyck going to play on Saturday or whatever, all those different kind of things, because to me, it doesn't matter, because I know the answer to the question is Connor Hellebuyck going to do what Connor Hellebuyck going to do. If Connor Hellebuyck wants to play, I don't know, 95% of the games down the stretch here, I think Scott Arniel will step in and say, okay, you can't quite do that, but he's good. I think Connor Hellebuyck makes it clear there's a rhythm that he wants to be in. There's an expectation that they give him a number of games to allow him to be in that rhythm, and I don't see that changing this season.
Yeah, fair. And like I said, I think it's Comrie's got to get to 20 or 21, depending on what they're feeling like. But yeah, I mean, I think that I don't think that the Jets can't put the record or 50 wins ahead of their team long-term team success when it comes to the playoffs. But based on how he's playing and how the team's playing, it's hard to imagine it not happening organically, unless I don't see this. There's going to be more losses, Sean. We know this. Some folks in the chat room may not see them coming, but I just think it's going to happen organically, that he's going to hit 49 or 50, whatever the number ends up being, just based on how well he's playing and how well the team is playing in front of him.
Yeah. Ken, have you given Sweet Lou a shout out yet?
No, we should. If you have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including our podcast.
I will say this. Here's another thing. While I've gone there, I might as well just touch on this. Kishore says, I might be the only American here with my Canadian friends on this topic. I was down in the States. I've got a lot of American friends down there. And the whole thing, because there was a lot of people talking about, the Canadians booing the anthem and stuff like that last Jets game at the beginning. And I was mortified for a second because it was, honoring Black culture. And the girls came out and were singing, right, and they opened up to boos. And I'm pretty sure when it happened, the girls thought that they were being booed for their
Right.
performance. And then it clicked in on me. So I hope it clicked in on them right away. And good on the crowd when they finished to give them a rousing cheer
For
afterwards.
sure.
But again, just like I say, I don't tell people how to fan. I don't tell people how to protest. The nature of protest is typically messy and it's typically disruptive. So I'm not one of these people out there who are going to chastise Canadians who are booing the American anthem. That's how they're choosing to reflect the reality of threats being made to their country by the President of the United States. I will say this, to Kishore's point that he just made here, I talked with a lot of Americans. I talked with a lot of my American friends, and the vast majority of them, like, I don't know if you just heard this news story the other day, Ken, but an American couple was in an Ontario restaurant. They bought food for the entire place
Awesome.
and said that we'd like to apologize for the way our country's treating your country right now. Again, I do think that there's been disrespect showed. I don't buy the narrative that it means that you're booing American troops. I don't buy the narrative that it means that you're attacking, what the country stands for. I'll say this, the vast majority of Americans I've talked to very much understand what Canadians are booing. And they are booing the U.S. anthem very specifically to protest the treatment of the American president and how he's treating Canadians in this situation, the way he's disparaging, political leaders. And so however you feel about those political leaders, disparaging political leaders and those offices, like, or whether you like the prime minister or not, he is disparaging and belittling the office. I think the vast majority of Americans understand exactly what Canadians are booing, and the ones that are pretending they don't understand are the ones that just don't like the fact that Canadians are standing up to that situation. So again, that's another one for me. I personally wouldn't choose to boo the American anthem, but I'm not going to sit here and chastise people who are using their voice in that way to stand up for what they believe in and stand up for their country. Where should we go before we get to our awards here, Ken?
Just a quick thought on the power play. I think, you were in the building. Obviously we've shared our thoughts on this privately, but we also know it's just 3 games, and I know some people are going crazy. Oh, how could this power play suddenly be 0 for 10? Obviously it was a big moment in the game. The Jets had a big opportunity, full 2-minute 2-man advantage. I thought they kind of let a few bad habits kind of creep in a little bit, Sean. That's what I saw on the TV. What did you think being in the building? I just thought that they were back to stationary rather than having that motion that has been kind of the critical element for them this year as they become the number 1 unit in the league.
Well, you know what I thought kind of threw them for a loop, Ken, especially on that 5-on-3, was Ottawa did a really good job of kind of collapsing and just protecting home plate. And in what they did is they still did a really good job of adjusting and moving and shutting down exterior shooting lanes. So for the most part, it was Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey who would be the shooters in that situation. And that top guy was really aggressive in moving into those shooting lanes. So what they did is they took the top guy, and the one guy was covering off. If it goes to Josh Morrissey, you get in that shooting lane. If it goes to Kyle Connor, you get into that shooting lane. And if it goes all the way over to Mark Scheifele, then the back defenseman was responsible for shutting down that shooting lane. But what the Jets have so much success with is they usually draw guys out of that home plate area, right? Like they lure them in, and what that does is that loosens things up, and then you can imagine passes get down inside to Nikolai Ehlers, they get inside to Velarde, and then all that damage starts to happen. Now all of a sudden you've stretched the guys out, and now passes are getting in and out all over the place. I think what happened is the Jets kind of were a little bit thrown for a loop, that it's a 5-on-3, and usually this guy's going to be running here and running there. And that's what turned them, Ken, I thought, a little bit stationary, because really, especially on that 5-on-3, the Jets were free to pass the puck back and forth from Mark Scheifele to Kyle Connor to Josh Morrissey and so on and so forth. You could see a couple times they tried to force it down low inside to Velarde or Nikolai Ehlers, and that pass just wasn't there. But the shooting lanes weren't there either. So I take a look at this on this night, and I always like to make sure I point this out. Just like I thought the San Jose Sharks had a really good game plan against the Winnipeg Jets like a number of games ago, I think I really like the way Andre Tourigny plans for the Winnipeg Jets. Give credit where it's due. I thought the Ottawa Senators came with a really good plan on how to shut down the Winnipeg Jets power play. They pulled that off, and they made the Jets look stationary.
Fair.
So I'm going to give credit where it's due there. I'm not ready to
Nolan
sound the
Baumgartner,
alarm.
there you go, running
There
the
you go.
PK of the Ottawa Senators, former Moose captain.
Yeah, so I am not allowed. I'm not allowed. I'm not willing to like ring the alarm bell on the Winnipeg Jets in their power play yet. Give it a little bit of time. This is just another time where the Jets' mental focus went into winning the game in other ways. Plenty of times the Winnipeg Jets have won the games this year on the power play. Didn't have it here tonight. They still found other ways to win it. The only person who could find fault in that and make the focus tonight about the Jets not scoring on the power play, that would be the lovely Bick Ronis, who gave a very good explanation of how terrible he thought the Jets power play was on this night. God love you, Bick. Okay, Ken, let's move on. Let's get to the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game.
Yeah, for me, I mean, there were a couple interesting plays as the game developed, a couple breakups and block shots, and, honorable mention for Ehlers blocking the shot, yet, the blade knocks out of his holder, finds his way to hustle to the bench. But to me, this goes back to what we talked about, half an hour ago or 20 minutes. I mean, Adam Lowry, calming the temperature of the game, and then, not coincidentally, the Jets scoring a pair in the first period to kind of almost take control of the game after kind of a little bit of a strange start with Ottawa missing all those players. So I think this is the leadership of Adam Lowry and the willingness to drop the gloves to sort of calm things down. That's my personal choice in the game here.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I'm going to go with it. And that is our Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business here in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that is the Kenny and Renny OG, the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game, which brings us to the #TheKeg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, there too, honorable mention, just because of the way the game was going. The save on Ridley Gregg is an important one because it happens, in between the Jets' 2 goals, right? In the 77-second span. Really good save there. But to me, after Ottawa kills the penalty and after Ottawa gets this glorious scoring chance on a failed reverse behind the net, Connor Hellebuyck just has a big and boring classic against David Perron that if the Senators pull within a goal in the last, 3 minutes of the second period, not saying the Jets couldn't have stabilized in the third like they did, but the fact that that's sort of calmed things down for the Jets in a game where they needed to kind of calm down, I thought that was the biggest save of the game, and that's why I'm going with it.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go with that. Problem is, Ken, you texted me the winner of the keg, and I have to go back and look for it. So, is there anything? What was Ken's?
I can take it.
What was Ken's second best?
I can help you. They were in the show, but they've left. It was formerly that won the keg gift card.
Okay, there you go. That is Ken's and my. The keg save of the game. But doesn't matter what we think, matters what you think. Share with us your the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win, like formerly did, as we've already let the cat out of the bag. But you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And as you know, formerly, you have won the $50 kegs gift certificate, but you have to do something first. You have to direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, send me an email, and I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And that brings us to our winner of the TCB Lamplighter, who I will announce after we go through our TCB Lamplighters. What do you got, Ken?
To me, I'm going with the Cole Perfetti goal, first and foremost, because of the connection itself, Ehlers to Perfetti, and the importance of what that line has done here during the winning streak. But it goes back to what we talked about, Sean. Where does Cole Perfetti need to be? When he went through the stretch of 14 games without a goal, he was spending a little bit too much time on the perimeter at times. But during the end of that drought, he started going to the blue paint a lot more. And this is just a brilliant play by Ehlers, taking advantage of a Timmy Stützle turnover. But Perfetti finds himself in front of the net alone, and just an awesome redirection. He has 5 goals and 12 points, I think, in the last 10 games,
10 games,
which is an
which you would know
impressive.
if you would have watched the post-game interview I had with Cole after the game.
I also said it. I did know because you mentioned it during the broadcast. So.
There you go. Okay? All right, fine. I thought you were trying to steal my info and make it. Actually,
I'm not stealing your info, buddy.
Ken feeds me all my questions before I go on. It's a fact that's going on.
Sorry, I was going to get ready to set up, so I missed the opening of your interview. I caught the last question, but I missed your intro, so I couldn't even pretend to steal it if I wanted to.
Yes. Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. I'll go with that one as well. That's it. That's our TCB Lamplighter of the game. It doesn't matter what we think. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag TCB Lamplighter of the game. You are automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you cannot wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your own 8-pack, you can head on down to 11290 Kenniston. Join them in their tap room where they've got everything you could ever want there. If you love beer and you love great food and a great environment, go check it out. TCB, I love it there. Haven't been there for too long. We should rectify that very soon.
Sorry to rub it in. I was there with Ed Tate today for lunch, and it was fantastic, buddy.
I bet it tasted amazing, didn't it? And I bet the beers were just great. I bet it tasted like the nectar of the gods, because that's basically what it is there, as I've said time and time again. And now time for me to announce the winner of the hashtag TCB Lamplighter, who should be heading down to TCB right away as well. That would be... Oh, geez.
Paul Cooper.
Paul Cooper. You know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email, and I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friend at TransCanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. I wanted to say something quickly here, Ken, because I know we did something that we don't do a lot, and we dove into some political stuff here on the show. A number of years ago on this show, I made a comment. I talked about someone as being the low man on the totem pole, and someone I have miles of respect for in journalism called me up afterwards and corrected me and said I had that wrong, and it was a misunderstanding of First Nation culture, and that we talked about this on the show afterwards, and that actually the low man on the totem pole is not the least important person because they hold everybody up. It's actually a position of honor. And I came out and I talked about it on the show. I thought it was important to do that because I think, when we talk about, making things right and working along with each other, it's we're going to make mistakes. And I thought, sometimes people make mistakes and they get pounced on and people kind of like beat them down or whatever. And I was so respectful of Kim Zervogiel, who got a hold of me after that, and very, lovingly, because, she's someone I work with, I have miles of respect for, kind of guided me to the right answer there. And I think that's important. I think that that's how we move forward with each other in societies. We treat each other with respect, and we don't always have to agree, and people get stuff wrong. And even if I got that wrong out of ignorance, there was an understanding that, if you're trying to get better, people want to help you get better. I say that because I thought that was a tone that we set a number of years ago on KNR. And I hope that kind of tone can cross over into politics. I know that there's going to be some people who will be really mad with my take on the American anthem because they feel very strongly about it, and everyone's going to have their own reasons to feel very strongly about things, and I respect those reasons. I know there's people who are going to feel really strongly about the Wayne Gretzky situation. And I know that there's going to be people who watch this show who are very, very ardent Trump supporters and are going to disagree with my characterization of them. I'm telling you my truth, how I feel about this situation. I guess all I would say is I think the best way forward for stuff like this, because I was asked about this, And I want to be able to talk openly about these kind of things. I respect people who are protesting as long as they do it in a way like protesting is messy. It's not supposed to make everyone feel. It's actually supposed to make people feel discomfort. That's the whole point of that whole thing. You may not agree with me, but I would hope that in having these conversations, when we have them in the show, that we can do so in a respectful manner. And people understand that when I say these kind of things, it doesn't mean if you think on the other side of this that you are automatically my enemy. I think there's too much of that going on in this world right now. I've got one of my best friends from high school who I've been talking with a lot lately. We could not be further apart in a lot of social issues, but what's important for me is that he understands that I love him, that I'm going to be there for him, that a lot of times I think he's whacked out and does not represent anything that I say, but the important thing is as human beings that we try and find a way to work through that and come together. So I hope that this space can be a place for that. And then I don't know, Ken, if you want to add to that. If not, we can go in another direction.
No, all yours. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Sammy the Scarf's thoughts on the intermission about the Jets maybe being one of those teams in on the Shen brothers is a topic we have discussed a little bit here in the last while.
A lot. So Sammy and I worked together on the St. Louis game, and that was the conversation. So I love that he got that up there because that was the conversation he and I had back on the way to the hotel on the way home. I do wonder about where Braden Shen's game is at. You and I had this conversation. I really didn't like him, I didn't like his game in that game they played against the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that if you're the St. Louis Blues, he's a guy that you would be willing to move because it feels like the team's starting to move on without him already. Now, the Winnipeg Jets do a great job of bringing players in and getting the best out of them, so maybe there's something there. I really think getting Luke on the back end would be everything that they need. I like that pickup. I also know that Josh Morrissey skates with them sometimes in the offseason because they both work with Adam Oates. And that right. Josh had said to me he's a big fan of what he's doing there, or what he's done and how he's found a way to stay in the NHL. I also think, Ken, if you saw that, we're hearing Seth Jones basically through his comments in the media trying to work his way out of Chicago. Luke Shen made some kind of comment about him never being on a team before that couldn't score the way that the Nashville Predators are unable to score. Now, that to me also kind of rang out as like the comments of someone who's trying to talk his way out of a dressing room. So it would be interesting to see if that's going to happen. I did want to say something before we do go. If you caught my opening at the beginning of the show, I had a ton of fun with it this time around. It was Tragically Hip night in the building there, and so I wanted to slip as many Tragically Hip references as I possibly could get into the show in a $1:05, a minute and 5 seconds. I would say this, folks. There is an unclaimed Keg $50 gift certificate. I'm going to throw it out there. If you can direct message me with the exact number of Tragically Hip references that I snuck in there, I will gift you an unclaimed $50 gift certificate. But here's the rules. You get one guess. I don't want to be inundated with someone being like 47, 46, 45. You get one shot at this, okay? And whoever gets the first one correct, whoever can tell me how many songs, how many Tragically Hip references I slipped in there, you will get a $50 gift certificate provided by the fine folks at the Keg in Winnipeg, each of their locations finer than the last. Ken, anything to say before we go? And it's not happening here. It's not happening in here.
You got people are already guessing. There you go.
They're already guessing.
I think it's more likely the Jets get Luke Shen, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if they're one of the teams that is inquiring about both. But to me, it's more likely that Braden ends up with Craig Berube in Toronto. And the reason why I say that is this: the Jets have Adam Lowry in that sort of 2-3C role. And I think that the Leafs are looking for more of a 3C. And right now, I think Braden has that ability to be a really feisty player that can provide some complementary scoring. Right now, he's going to have to elevate his game a little bit to be a 2C on a championship contender. But again, I'd be open to the idea depending on what the price tag is. But I think that they'll definitely be in on Luke Schenn and, then see what happens in terms of Braden. But yeah, I mean, 3 more years at 6.5. I mean, that would be something that the Jets are going to have to be cognizant of, knowing that, Cole Perfetti is going to need an extension within that 3-year period. Yes, the cap is going up and all those things, but to me right now, Luke makes a little bit more sense than Braden. But again, Braden brings a lot of competitive spirit. He's a winner, played for the Brandon Wheat Kings, would have, they're Saskatchewan guys. So maybe they'd be a little bit more open to Winnipeg than some. But again, it'll be very interesting to see what happens here.
Yeah, I think the Jets are going to go bigger game hunting than Braden Schenn, but I'm a big believer that Luke Schenn, adding him would be exactly what the Winnipeg Jets need. They need size on the back end. They need grit on the back end. They need that kind of attitude on the back end. I'd said this, and I always say that I love the "what are you going to do about it" attitude. One of the last games that I saw Luke Schenn play, he literally was on the ice, pushed someone, and said exactly that. You could see his mouth say, "What are you going to do about it?" I love that style of hockey. It's the style of hockey that goes far in the playoffs. And if the Winnipeg Jets want to go far, I do believe they need to add an element to that. I didn't get to share it in the broadcast today. Talked quickly with Kevin Cheveldayoff, and he said that he thinks that the trade market is still trying to figure out what it is at this point. Was along the lines of what he'd said. So he's, trying to, I think what the meeting there is trying to suss out which trades are actually real out there and which aren't. And I guess that would kind of mean like, it can kind of be a silly season at times. And so are guys really thinking of moving someone, or are they just putting a name out there and seeing how stupid you could get and what kind of stupid offer you could make? Or are there guys that, I think this is what he means by this, there's GMs out there who are like, we're moving a guy, let's do business, right? I think Kevin Cheveldayoff wants to deal with the people who are out there to do business, not the guys out there hoping that you go fishing with a stick of dynamite. So anyways, that's it on my end. Ken, anything to say before we go?
No, we'll get into a little bit more tomorrow after the Nashville game and in the time leading up to next Friday.
You betcha. Ken, you'll be on the road for the trade deadline?
Yes, sir.
As will I. I haven't even said to you, we are driving from Long Island to Philly to
Newark,
New Jersey to Newark.
Okay.
So if we happen to see you thumbing for a ride on the road, I can guarantee you we will stop and pick you up, my guy. We will stop and pick
Appreciate
you up.
that.
All right. Ken, great job tonight. As always, all you in the chat room, don't forget, if you have the answer to my question, you can direct message me. I am not accepting anything that went into the chat room, so you're going to have to make it direct. Anyways, that's it for us. Before we do go, I wanted to say, as I always do, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we implore you to appreciate the contributions made by our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Pristine Roofing, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, our guy Sweet Lou Furlan, the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnson Group, the Keg, and of course, TransCanada Brewing Company. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. It's been a great 4 years. We're going to make it as many more as we possibly can, and we really appreciate so many of you who've been along for the ride right from the very beginning. We can't wait to do it with you next game. We will talk to you after that tomorrow night. Bye-bye.